see all your beautiful faces. I've been praying for you for quite some time. And if you've ever heard me speak, you know that I'm a huge sports fan. Where are my athletes at? Sports fans? All right, okay. Where are my Cavalier fans at? LeBron James fans? Sorry about that. Sorry. Sorry about that. How about World Cup fans? Any World Cup fans? Okay, all right. So on the count of three, I'm going to have you shout out to me who your favorite pick is to win the World Cup. I will compute all of your input, and I will give you back the winner of the World Cup. Think about it, and don't be shouting two teams at me. That messes me up. Okay, ready? Think about it. 3, 2, 1, go. They're not even in it. I'm going with Portugal. How about Portugal? Or not? Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to talk about sports tonight. I'm going to talk about Star Wars. Any Star Wars fans? Okay, all right. So here's my whole thing. So it's interesting why things are popular and why we like what we like. And I find Star Wars to be a very interesting thing because tonight I'm going to talk about the Father's love revealed and what your place is in all this, okay? So if you know anything about the latest Star Wars movies, you know what Disney has done. Disney has taken the franchise and they've marketed it to a whole new generation. So they started with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. If you saw Han Solo, you saw Rogue One. Now we're going to wait for the next one. But there's this whole story of something that we see in a girl named Rey. But the reason why it's popular, the reason why we like these movies, the reason why it speaks to generation after generation is because it speaks to something in us. And do all of us not know the battle between good and evil, the battle between light and darkness? And there's a very famous saying that says the line between good and evil runs down the heart of every single person. If you've ever wondered in your life, like, where do I belong? Where's my place in all this? You're not alone. So what I've done is I've taken the Last Jedi trailer and I've edited the trailer, okay? I'm going to show you the trailer. If you haven't seen this movie, I have no idea where you've been your whole life, then none has seen it twice, okay? So what I'm going to have you do is while you watch it, I want you to listen to what Rey is saying. Because Rey is saying something that speaks to the heart of all of us. Can you show the trailer for us? Amen, huh? I like that because if you've seen the movie, you know at the very beginning that the Resistance has sent Rey on a mission. And she's looking for Luke Skywalker because they think Luke Skywalker is the one that's going to save them. And I think so often in our life, we're looking for Luke Skywalkers in our life. And she goes out and she finds him off the coast of Ireland, right? She goes in search of him and she finds him, and he has nothing to do with her. And she chases him down and she says, clearly you're not busy. Like, I've seen your schedule. You are not busy, okay? And she finds the sacred Jedi tree, and she goes into the middle of the sacred Jedi tree, and she's having this moment of like, I've been here before. I know this somehow. And she's about to put her hands on the sacred Jedi text, and Luke Skywalker finds her, and he says, who are you? And she says, I'm nobody. He's like, where are you from? And she says, I'm from Jakku. He's like, well, where are you from? Nobody's from nowhere. Where are you from? She's like, well, I'm from Jakku. He's like, well, that pretty much is nowhere. But where are you from? Like, why are you here? And she says, the Resistance sent me. And she's about to cop out and say it a different way, say it another time. And he says to her, no, you, Rey, why are you here? And that's when she says what you heard her say, that you and I have said, if we've never said it like that, man, we've said it in a million different ways where we've said to ourselves, there's something inside of me that's been here the whole time. But now it's awake. And I need someone to show me my place in all of this. If I were to ask you in your life, it's a rhetorical question, what are you looking for? That's the first thing that Jesus asks his disciples in the Gospel of John. He doesn't give them some sort of moral dissertation. He asks them a question. He's a great teacher, such a great teacher. He says, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? What's your purpose? Why are you here? Not the person sitting next to you, but you. Why are you here? Because I guarantee you have a mission, and as much as we like Star Wars, man, your mission is far more important than that. Your mission is eternal. And I think you and I in our life have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of dreams, we have a lot of desires, and all of us are looking for a place to call home. We're looking for a place where we belong. And maybe you've already had that experience today. You got on the bus and you were looking for your friends. Or maybe you just got on a bus and you were looking for a friend. I sometimes joke around when I speak to adults because, honestly, adults, we're still like kids so many times. And an example I often use is I'm actually very introverted. And so, sometimes I go to places and, you got the adults at these cocktail parties and it's like introverts' death, hell on earth. Okay, so you go to these cocktail parties and you like have the sparkling water with like some sort of hors d'oeuvre that has, you don't even know what it is, on your plate. And there's these tables and there's these seats at the table and you came with a friend or two and I'm looking for a fellow nun friend or something like that. And you walk into a room full of people and you're looking around and all of a sudden you feel like you're in 7th grade again at the cafeteria, and you're like, oh man, does anybody want to sit with me? Like, you're looking for your friends. I'm guarantee you every adult feels like that. So we're looking around looking for your friends, and maybe all of a sudden your friend's way in the back, and they're like, hey, come sit here, come sit. And you're like, oh, thank God, right? So you go and you sit down at the table. Or maybe there's other people that you do know, and there's clearly a seat at their table, but there's no seat for you. And there's something inside us that just breaks because we're looking for something. And I think, in society today, in life today, there's a lot of different answers of where we belong and where we should go and what we should be looking for. And I think we can tell ourselves a lot of things, but there's something inside us that just keeps calling us to something beyond ourselves, to something more. Chris was kind of alluding to my story, and I won't tell you my whole story tonight. I'll get to spend some time with you over the weekend, but I stand before you here today, obviously a religious sister. I'm a bride of Christ. I'm married to Jesus Christ forever, for all eternity. I get the way better end of the deal on that one, okay? I've been in religious life 20 years. I played Division I volleyball. I wanted to work for ESPN. Aaron Andrews stole my job, so I'm a nun instead. And so here I am at your youth conference. And I'm also standing before you here today, a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober many years now. I'm an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse and rape. I was very promiscuous. I had a lot of brokenness in my life. And there was a long time where I thought that I did not need God, and there's no way that God could love somebody like me. So maybe you and I have some stories along the way, because there's a reason why when we think of what we think, why we think it. And you know what, in my whole journey of life, I was always looking for something more, even though I settled for a while, and I was like, I don't care, I don't have to go to confession, like, don't tell me what to do. Like if you ever watched little children, many times little kids, I ran a daycare for 8 years, when you tell them to do something and you'd be like, okay, it's time to cross the street or don't cross the street, every now and then, said every kindergarten ever, they'll put their little hand on their hip and they'll say, you're not the boss of me. And I wonder how many times we, so to speak, stand with our hands on our hips before God and say, man, you're not the boss of me. Don't tell me what to do. I find pop culture very interesting, whether it's Star Wars or whether whoever it is, right? And I found this song, and I just want to say I'm not in any way promoting the singer of this song. I'm not promoting the original version. The original version is pretty filthy. But I found the social commentary on the song very interesting. So I figured tonight we could have what I call a little Kesha pop culture poetry reading, shall we? Okay. So this is a song called Hymn for the Hymnless, And when I first heard it, I said, Kesha's singing a hymn, that's very interesting. And then I listened to the words, and I thought, oh, that's a very brilliant social commentary. So here she is. She says, even the stars and the moon don't shine quite like we do because we're dreamers searching for the truth. You hear her heart. And then she says this is a hymn for the hymnless, kids with no religion. Yeah, we keep on sinning. Yeah, we keep on singing. Flying down the highway, backseat of a Hyundai. I would choose a Maserati, but that's okay. A backseat of a Hyundai. Pull up to the front, let it run, we don't valet. Sorry if you're starstruck, blame it on the stardust. I know that I'm perfect even though I'm messed up. Hymn for the hymnless, don't need no forgiveness, because if there's a heaven, don't care if we get in, because this is a hymn for how we live. And when I first heard that, I thought of it, and I'm listening to her searching for the truth, and she's looking for something more, and she's looking for something to be revealed. She's looking for a place to call home. And then I listened to it, and I said, I don't believe it for a second. I don't believe it for a second. Because you and I are made for heaven. We're made for an eternal embrace. We're made to go home. We're made from home. God lives as a communion. He calls us home. This is why the ache in our heart to find a place where you belong, a place where people love you, a place where you can just be yourself and be loved and be called to excellence in who you are, a place where your dreams soar to the highest possible extent. This is a heaven. This is what we're looking for. But just like anything else in life, you and I have various ways of going about it. And whether we cop that attitude of saying, man, don't tell me what to do, Or maybe we've tried so hard in our life to get everything right because I went from living like one life of way out here, like you talk about the prodigal son living way out here. I went to the other extreme as well, and I'm just going to get everything right. If you've ever struggled with perfectionism, if you thought, man, if I just try hard enough, maybe I'll be worthy to be loved. And it's exhausting. And in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells a very interesting story. He tells a story of, really, we call it the story of the prodigal son. But it's really a couple different stories. It's a story of two sons. It's a story of a father. And it's very interesting because in the Gospel of Luke chapter 15, the scribes and the Pharisees are getting a little scandalized because Jesus is eating with tax collectors and sinners, and they're like, ugh. So Jesus sees what's going on, so astute. He sees what's going on, and he starts telling parables. Parables are stories to illustrate an important truth. And he begins to tell a parable, and he tells the story of lost sheep. We've heard the lost sheep many times, about the 99, right? And then he kind of ups the ante a little bit, no pun intended, and he starts to tell a story about a woman who lost a coin. And she goes in search, and she finds a coin, and when she finds a lost coin, she calls all of her neighbors. But then he goes to the highest point, which is the human person. And he begins to tell a story about two sons. And he says, there was a son who went to his father, and he said, Father, give me the share of my inheritance. Give me what's coming to me because I want to leave. Which is a horrendous, horrendous offense. It's like saying to your dad, Dad, I wish you were dead. I want my inheritance now. And the father's brokenhearted. But he gives the son what the son asks for. And the son takes all of his inheritance and he goes out and he squanders it. He leaves home. He goes into a far distant island or far distant land. He leaves home and he squanders all of his money on prostitutes and partying, all that kind of stuff. And then there's this famine spreads across the land and he's starving. And all of a sudden, all the people that wanted to hang out with him, all the people he was buying drinks for, are not interested anymore because his popularity is gone, his money is gone. And all of a sudden, he is now starving. He has no money. He's dressed in rags. And he's hired himself out to feed the pigs. And for a Jew to feed pigs is the most disgusting thing you can possibly imagine because it's an unclean animal. And he's starving. He's so hungry. He actually wants to eat the food that he has to give the pigs to eat, but nobody's giving him anything. And at that point, he says to himself, man, what am I doing? Like, where do I belong? Like, there's something inside of me, man. I'm made for something more than this. There's got to be more to life than this, like we've all said. And he kind of comes to his senses, and he gets up, and you can see him rehearsing this speech. He's like, that's it. I'm going to go, my father's hired hands. They have more food than I can possibly imagine. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to tell my father that I don't belong to him anymore. I don't deserve to be called his son. Just treat me as you would one of the hired hands. And so he makes this little speech in his heart, and he's going to go home, and he's going to be reunited to the father. And I love this part of the story because you know what? When we think about how God loves us, we talk about God as Father, right? That Jesus Christ is the face of the Father's mercy. And so we have to ask ourselves, we hear this story and like, who is God to you? Because I know for myself for a long time, God was somebody to be feared. Somebody who, in a sense, like I call like the policeman in the sky, right? Who has like this ticket book. He's left-handed, by the way. I would take a book and he's watching me, he's writing down all my sins. Or maybe, to be quite honest, and I say this very reverently, maybe we had fathers that weren't good fathers to us. Because they're broken, right? People are broken. So what we do many times is we project that onto God. And so what Christ is doing in the midst of this parable, he's actually revealing the truth of who God is. Because see what happens, that young son who was so awful to his father, that young son is a long way off, and as a long way off, the father sees him, and the father goes out running. And for a Jewish patriarch, they do not run to anybody. You come and you kneel at their feet. But the father's been waiting a long time. He's been watching for his son the whole time, and he sees his son far off in the distance, and he takes off running. And the son, they meet one another, and the son can't even get his whole excuse out, and the father just grabs him and brings him to himself. And he says, quick, get the fatted calf, quick, bring a robe, put a ring on him, because my son is back with me. And they throw a huge party. And many times people think the story ends there, but see, the story doesn't end there because the man has two sons. So for those of you who perhaps share some of my own story, like we share the same story of kind of going off to a distant land of saying, man, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to make myself happy. If there's a heaven, I don't want to get in it. Who cares? There's another son. And that son's been there the whole time. And so he's out in the fields, and he hears what's going on in the house, and he calls one of their servants. He's like, what's going on? And the servant says, hey, your brother, he's back. Your dad slaughtered the fattened calf, and he gave him a robe, and we're throwing a party because, your dad has him back safe and sound. And that brother is livid. And the father doesn't go out just once for the wayward son. He goes out again for the other son. And I can just imagine just the tenderness of God's heart, the tenderness of his heart as the father comes and he approaches his son. And I can imagine that son has a little speech he'd like to give his father as well. And the father approaches the son and he urges him to come inside. And he looks at his dad and he says, all these years I've served you. All these years I've served you. I've been here this whole time. And never once have you given me so much as a kid to share with my friends. But now this son of yours who wastes your inheritance with prostitutes and loose living, for him you slaughter the fattened calf. And you can just imagine his anger just pours out upon his father. And the father doesn't say anything. And I can just imagine, because he hears the pain of his son, because he realizes that neither of them have been living as sons. And his response is not one of condemnation, not one of judgment or criticism, or he bears the pain like he bears our pain. And he says to him, my son, you're with me always. And everything that I have is yours, everything. But we have to celebrate, because your brother was lost and now he's found. He was dead and now he's alive. We have to. And you know what I find very interesting in that story is that Jesus doesn't end the story, because we don't know what the older son decides. They say that there's a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think one of the most famous paintings of this very moment is a painting by a Dutch painter named Rembrandt. Can you pull up my slide for me, please? It's the painting of the prodigal son. And you see here, I'm just going to show you some of it. You can see here, I'm going to go back here, is that the father is embracing the son as he comes home. And you see this the tenderness of the father, like just the rich painting, there's a lot of reds, there's just a lot of beauty in the painting. And you see the father is old and blind, he's reaching over his son, he's embracing his son. When children many times, want to reconcile with their parents, they bury their face in their stomach, and you just see the father totally embracing the son. You see with his hands on his son's shoulders, and you see the sandals falling off his feet. There's some other people here in the painting. This might be the mother. Here's probably an estate steward. And here, my dear friends, is the elder brother as he stands and he watches. Rembrandt painted a lot of nuances and a lot of rich depth in the meaning. So as you look at the painting, it actually gets deeper as you go along. You see the hands here. Actually, Rembrandt painted the hands differently. As you see the tender face of the father, this hand, Rembrandt painted more like the hand of a mother right over his heart, guarding him where he's vulnerable. This hand, he painted more a hand like a masculine man, blessing him where he is strong. And you see it actually goes directly over where the sandals are on the feet, because as the sandals are on the feet, the vulnerable part is harbored, the vulnerable part is cherished, it's healed, and the strengthened part is made even stronger. And what he does, though, he also invites us into a deep reflection on the painting itself, because you see here this young man, the elder son, who's standing here not close to his brother and his father, but at a distance. You see how primly he stands, how far away he stands from the painting. And I'm going to go back to the original. I'm going to show you the difference. Look at this huge chasm. Do you see where the father and the son are here? To kind of illustrate the difference, what Rembrandt did is he actually painted the son over here, but look, there's a huge gap between them. There's actually steps. And the elder son is far away. One of my favorite Catholic writers is a priest named Henry Nouwen. And he wrote extensively about this painting. He spent many, many hours in front of this painting. And what he said is like, many times you and I look at a painting or we look at this, we hear this story and we say, oh, I'm easily the younger son or I'm easily the older son. But he said, actually, they both remain within us. And there's something about you and I, this desire to be at home, to be at peace, is our deepest desire. And this is what Henry Nouwen would have to say about that very place where God is calling us home. He says, this place, this area where God comes to harbor us, to shelter us, to strengthen us, to protect us, to forgive us. He says, it is the place of light. It is the place of truth. It is the place of love. It is the place where I so much want to be, but I'm so fearful of being. It is the place where I receive all that I desire and all that I've ever hoped for, all that I will ever need. But it is also the place where I have to let go of all I most want to hold on to. It is the place that confronts me with the fact that truly accepting love and forgiveness and healing is often much harder than giving it. It is the place beyond earning and deserving and rewarding. It is a place of surrender and complete trust. One thing we find what God does is, I love that he continually reveals the truth of who he is. Because you notice he's not disturbed by either son. You see the elder son who's been obedient his whole life. He's done the hard work. He's been faithful and loyal, and those are wonderful things. And you see the younger son in his passion, he's gone out and he's been destructive. And you see the passion is a beautiful thing. Obedience is a beautiful thing, but they must be married. And when my passion is married to obedience, then I can give my life to God and I can allow him to come and heal me and to set me free. And I don't have to live in secrets. I don't have to live in sorrow. I can tell you honestly, to this day, there were years I never thought that I could ever speak of the things that happened to me, much less to myself out loud, much less to a crowd of 1,000 people. And as God, as he continually, as sure as I stand here before you to this very day, that he is healing me on a very, very deep level because he aches for us. I'm guessing that there's probably a lot of us in this room who have a variety of stories, a mix of things. Maybe you've been looking forward to coming here all year long, like you couldn't wait since last year. Maybe your mom and dad made you come. My mom and dad used to make me come to stuff like this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. So if that's you, okay, I totally get it, right? Maybe this is something where you're struggling with an addiction. Maybe you've got addiction to lust, you've got addiction to anger, you've got addiction to, maybe there's some stuff happening that you say to yourself, sister, if you had any idea what happens in my home at night, I can't even tell you. And it's this point in our story, my dear friends, where the Father comes out to meet us. And he comes out to meet us to bring us home. He comes out to meet us to transform us. He comes out to meet us so we're no longer at a distance. We're not standing far away, that we're standing in an embrace of light, of truth, of peace, of warmth, of goodness, of transformation. But see, the thing is, God only invites. He doesn't force. And sometimes people in our life, they force things. And when they force stuff on it, it can break us at times. But see, God doesn't do that. One of my favorite things about him, aside from the fact he's astoundingly beautiful, is that he's so kind. So kind. And he sees you as you are, behind the facades, right, behind all the ways we try to pretend or perfect or perform, or all the things we do, all the ways we go out to our distant lands, all the ways that we're inside ourselves, we're saying, man, there's something inside of me. There's something inside of me. And he says, yeah, there is something inside of you because I made it and I'm calling you home. And it's only his love that heals. It's his love that heals our broken love. It's his love that heals our story. It's his love that heals our desires. It's his love that sets us on fire. And I have to say, one of my favorite things about being Catholic, one of the most beautiful things about being Catholic is the sacraments that we have, and one of them is the sacrament of reconciliation, of confession. And can I just talk about the priesthood just for a second, just for 1 second? Because see, that's one of the, St. John Vianney says it's the priesthood that's the love of the heart of Jesus. And what Jesus does when he calls priests, he calls men from among men, and he indelibly marks them. He places a mark on their soul, and at that moment, they're configured to Christ, which means that those men love literally in a way that nobody else on earth can love. Their heart is configured to Christ. They love with Christ's love. Their hearts are poured out in service. Their hearts are poured out in love. Their hearts are poured out in healing and reconciliation and blessing. And from their hearts, their hands bless. And they heal the sick and they raise the dead and they bring Christ to the altar and they absolve sins. This manifestation, this personification of Christ on earth and the heart of a priest. And St. John Vianney will go on to say, the priest is not a priest for himself. He's a priest for you. And so God chooses these noble men and he configures their heart to his. And they pour out his mercy and love and his healing upon the world. So when you and I go and we encounter Christ in the confessional, we literally are encountering Christ in his merciful heart, where he comes to bring us home. So let me ask you, what are you looking for? And I don't know what your deep desire is this weekend, but I guarantee you whatever desire you have, God's desire for you far supersedes anything you could possibly imagine. I can tell you that whatever addiction you're struggling with, I struggle with an addiction not only to alcohol, but to lust for many years. I can tell you that whatever addiction you're struggling with, whether it's cutting, whether it's self-hatred, whether it's I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know, but I know God does, and I know he's calling you home. His desire for you is to come home, and he's awakening the desire within you where you say to yourself, there's something inside of me, and amen, there is, because you're called to excellence, and you're called to love and to goodness and truth and beauty. You are called to transform the world because that is who you are. So let's pray, shall we? Let's pray. So I don't know tonight, my dear friends, wherever you find yourself, and as we journey with the prodigal sons, as we journey with both sons, maybe you could just kind of find a place in that painting. And maybe you're the son or the daughter who's gone far away, and maybe you're at the point where you're not even sure you want to come home yet. Maybe you're the son or the daughter that stayed home, and you're the oldest, and you've done everything right, and still in your heart you're looking for something more. Or, many ways we fall into judgment of other people. We're critical. All the things that we do, all the facades that we have because we're afraid of being seen as we truly are. Maybe you'd rather not even be in the painting. Maybe you're far removed. I don't know, but could you find a place in the story? Where is your place in the story tonight? In the story of the two sons, okay, so for the sake of it, we could say the two daughters, right? Where are you? And the Father's going to come to you, and he's just going to ask you the same question that he asked Adam and Eve in the garden. He says, where are you? Where do you find yourself tonight, my dear friends? Where are you? What is your desire? So, Lord Jesus, I ask at this very moment for all of us here in this room that you would bring to light the deep desire of our heart. And maybe for some of us, it's just to be seen. And we say, man, Lord, do you even know me? Do you see me? Do I belong here? Maybe some of us tonight are hurting from deep father wounds. Or maybe dad has been abusive, or he's just not around, or he's just not interested, or he only pays attention to you when you perform well. I ask you, Father, that you would heal us of father wounds. Lord, I pray that you would come find us tonight in all the ways that we're hiding, all the things that we're afraid to admit, that you are already there with us. You are waiting there for us to set us free. Just pray for all of us tonight in the places where we're distant, where we're self-righteous, where we try to heal ourselves, we try to fix ourselves, we try to forgive ourselves, right, so to speak, without you. And I ask that you would come and speak your word of kindness to us. Lord Jesus, I ask that you would speak a word to each one of us right now. What do you want to say to us about who we are and where we belong? Come and find us, Lord. Come and seek us out, whether we're in the field or in a distant land. Come seek us out. Your love is bold, your love is kind, your love is fierce, your love is tender, and we belong to you. Our home is in you. And that place within us, it's a call for you. It's an ache for intimacy with you. It's a longing for you. Bring us home, Lord. Bring us home. Set us free. And bring us home.